Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going hunting for oil. And lucky for us, over here on Smelial, we have a lot of it. Without even digging, there's 5 reservoirs that I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We want to tap all of those and send them right back home. But in order to conquer this asteroid and get into these oil reservoirs, I think we're going to need more than the standard 1 dupe. So I think it's time for us to set a second rocket up, and this one with the intent purpose of colonization. First things first, we build a new rocket platform. I think here looks about good. While the dupes work on that, there's a couple of new dupes I'd like to introduce you to. First is Reflector. Reflector comes to us as an operator builder. It's going to be a nice mechatronics engineer. Additionally, we also have Megatron, who enjoys rocketry, which is a little fitting. But in a point of irony, Megatron doesn't like to do attacking errands. That's right, Megatron's a pacifist. Now for the engine type. One of the reasons why we're going to get oil is because we want to make an absolute ton of petroleum. And we're probably going to eventually make a petroleum boiler. And right now we have a pretty good excess of petroleum, so I figured might as well do a petroleum engine to start with. Thanks to our molten slicksters, we have plenty of petroleum in reserve. We have about 5 tons here, then we have about 3.5 tons in this tank, and then plenty in this pool as well. This will be plenty for at least a few rocket flights until we get a petroleum boiler up and running. Speaking of molten slicksters, there's 86 in here. Even though they're hungry and cramped and all that kind of stuff, they're still kind enough to, whenever they do get some carbon dioxide, to spit out some more petroleum. Our breeders here are doing a great job as well. Since this reservoir is getting full, I think it's about time. Every once in a while, we deconstruct it. Once that's finished, we just put another one back. And what's left behind is all the petroleum that was in that tank, in this case 4.5 tons. The dupes will then come over and dump it into this bottle emptier. So that's where our current source of petroleum is. Now, for the purposes of getting it to that rocket engine, we need to bring it up to the space biome. What better way to do that than a small bridge and then some piping all the way up? I think it'd be smart to stockpile some of the petroleum that we're going to use for our engines. So we'll put a couple of liquid reservoirs here. And this is what Megatron and Reflector do all day. And the reason why we do this is we want to make sure they have the highest athletics they can have before they end up going off into exosuits. If you've never used a dupe gym before, the best way to do it is for your new dupes, put them into research. The reason why you put them into research is because it gives them a bonus to skill leveling. You can see here that already with Megatron's 6 in science, they have a plus 60% to skill leveling. Once they're finished, you throw them in the old skill scrubber. We just recently did this for Jazz and then skill scrubbed her. So now they can go off and do the business of what they're supposed to be doing. And you can see just based on that dupe gym, they already have a machinery of 16 and athletics of 15. And with that many points, you're free to put them into whatever they want. And as a courtesy, we always make sure that we don't forget their hats. So one advantage of the petroleum engine is because it has such a high module engine power at 42, it has much higher height. In other words, you're able to build a lot larger rocket. Compared to the Radbold engine, it only has a module engine power of 30, so a max height of 20. Whereas the petroleum engine has a max height of 35 and a module engine power of 42. It's going to give us a lot of flexibility on what kind of modules that we want to put on this. The only contingency I made with getting the petroleum there is we built these pipes out of insulated obsidian. This is the hope that when this rocket does take off, that it's not going to boil the petroleum in the pipes. And we can test this pretty simply. We'll just change it over to crew. With Alita loaded, we can change the destination. We'll just do it right there to the orbit, and we'll make sure they come right back. You can see the pipe, even with the rocket taking off and landing, the petroleum inside it only went up to 51 degrees. That's not too shabby, especially considering the petroleum can go all the way up to 538 before it turns into sour gas. Alright, here's the completed petroleum rocket in all of its glory. Elon Musk, eat your heart out. The first thing to know about the petroleum engine is you have to have large liquid fuel tanks in order to hold the petroleum for the petroleum engine. Additionally, you need an oxidizer. Now, liquid fuels require oxidation. When you use solid oxalate and liquid petroleum, the petroleum to oxalate ratio is 2:1. What this means is we have 900 kilos of oxalate, so we can hold up to 1,800 kilos of petroleum. And that's accomplished by using 2 fuel tanks. With that much fuel and oxidation, we can go 12 tiles at a height of 35. Now, the petroleum engine is great because it's powerful enough to move a lot of modules a medium distance. You can see the difference between the height in the Radbolt rocket and the height of the petroleum engine rocket. The petroleum engine rocket can hold a lot more modules and move a lot more cargo. Now, some of the details on this is we have 2 Trailblazer modules. The reason why is we're going to land these Trailblazer modules onto smelial, deconstruct them, and then be able to build its own rocket platform. And that way we can land our beautiful petroleum engine rocket down on smelial, and our dupes can live and work out of it. Don't mind this little graphical bug. It happens every once in a while. The only way I found to fix it is just to reload. And here's the interior of the rocket. You'll notice that we have sleeping for 2, a couple of mess tables, which we've configured at great length to make sure that it was a great haul. We really didn't want to miss out on that +6 to morale. We've also loaded up with 400,000 calories of berry sludge. Now, the berry sludge itself will give +8 to morale, so we should be doing pretty good on morale. All said and done, we have the barracks and a great haul, plus the berry sludge, plus some decor. We weren't able to get the latrine, and that's because of this little guy right here. The mini gas pump is considered an industrial machine. In most rooms, they will not allow an industrial machine. That's to include the barracks, the latrine, and the great hall. Not a big deal though, because this is still a pretty good setup. I'm sure I could have figured out a way to get this mini gas pump into a room by in itself, so it wouldn't take a back from the great hall. The issue is the great hall requires 32 tiles of space, and in a rocket interior this size, it's difficult to get 32 tiles of space, plus 2 cots, plus everything else. Now, we are starting to run out on some needed materials, one being bleach stone. We only have about 3 tons of bleach stone left. Now, granted, this 15 kilos will last a very long time, but it's something to keep an eye on. Additionally, we are running low on gold. You can see here, we only have 1,248 kilos of gold and 1,288 kilos of gold amalgam. Now, while smelial does not have any sort of gold on it that I could see, it's got lead, it's got cobalt ore and iron ore, there's no gold. But what does have gold, and we will eventually head over there, is Timberial. Timberial has gold in the planetoid, and additionally, it also has a gold volcano. So you can bet your bottom dollar we'll be heading to Timberial here soon. You notice on the rocket we only have 3 solar panel modules, and they only produce 60 watts apiece. So that's a total of 180 watts. Inside the rocket, you can see that we're using 240 through the atmosuit docks and then 60 for the pump. The pump's really all we care about. The 120 watts only drains when it's charging, so that'll be fine. When it's not charging, the gas pump will keep going. It will take a little bit longer to make sure that the atmosuit's docks are charged, and so the mini gas pump throws all the oxygen into the atmosuit docks. But for the inexpensive power cost, and considering everything else we have on this rocket to give it the 12 tile distance, this is the best we could do, especially with the 2 Trailblazer modules. Now, why do we need 12 tiles? Well, we're going from Fertilla to Smelial, and that is a distance of about 4 tiles between them. The key is we want to be able to make sure that we can go round trip. Some of these distance planetoids will not be able to go there round trip. You can see, for instance, to Bolera, it is 7 hexes away. So that we wouldn't quite be able to get there and back on this Petroleum engine. For now, though, it'll give us round trip distance to most of the asteroids here. The ones that are further than 6 tiles out, in other words, so we would not be able to make round trips, is Bolera and Furiel, which I have no idea how to pronounce that the correct way. All I know is it's hot. Even from the top of the planetoid, you can see it's just all magma. That'll be a fun one to conquer. So let me finish up letting these atmosuit docks charge and fill, and then we will be on our way. In the meantime, though, we need to make sure that we select the right away team. I think we're going to end up taking Optimus and Ironhide. And the reason is pretty simple. They're going to be doing a lot of digging, and Optimus and Ironhide are really good at it. All we need to make sure is that one of them can be a pilot, and that just takes one click. Now Optimus can also be a rocket pilot, so we're good. His total morale requirement is 17, and we will be able to meet that just fine between the Berry Sludge, the Great Hall, the Barracks, and the Dicor. In fact, just in case, we're going to skill scrub him, put him in the exact same skills, minus the improved construction and improved construction 2. And we'll do the same for Ironhide. They're already great builders. You can see Ironhide has a construction skill of 16. Granted, that's with +4 because of his skills. And Optimus has a construction of 16 as well. Update on the molten larvas. There's now 113 in this room. We ever get hungry, we can do a giant kill command and be able to eat barbecue for days. We've completed the skill scrub for Ironhide and Optimus, and you can see Optimus only has a morale requirement of 10 and Ironhide of 9. Plenty of space to grow, plenty of morale. I think we're about ready. Since this was taking a month of cycles, I added a second mini gas pump. We're about to remove it though. We got one atmosuit dock full and the other one's half full. We also have the entire flight over there. The mini gas pumps will keep working. Then once we get there, the only time they'll kick in is when they dock their suits again. So we can go ahead and deconstruct this guy. Because I would love to leave it there, but as the example, this is now a miscellaneous room. Because the small gas pump is considered a industrial machine. And now the last thing we have to build is the atmosuit checkpoint. Once that's built, we are ready to go. Our intrepid dupes are here and ready to go. Oh, I need to make sure I flip this directional arrow. It's time to launch. Our destination is to the orbit of Smelial, and as you can see, there's no rocket platform as of right now. And our large Elon Musk rocket is ready to go. Beginning launch sequence. One thing we definitely need to do is make sure that Optimus and Ironhide can eat the berry sludge. That would have been a fatal mistake. We're sending Alita home off her latest exploration mission. One key feature that you have to remember, when you have multiple rocket pads, you need to designate which rocket pad you want the rockets to land at. This little drop-down box, we know rocket platform 402 is the one we need back on Fertilla, but it would just be as messed up as a football bat if Alita landed the rocket here, and then we'd have to play the how do we get rad bolts there again. I wanted to provide a quick update on our geothermal power solution. The bug that I was speaking of where the door no longer acted as a vacuum has been solved from what I think, and it's due to the addition of these 2 insulated tiles. Even though it was encompassed by vacuum, apparently these 2 insulated tiles help it out with realizing, hey, I'm in a vacuum, so it won't continuously transfer heat there. We've also started adding some window tiles because our magma is starting to get a little lower, so it wasn't necessarily touching some of the obsidian here, so the heat draw was getting a little lower. The way temperature shift plates work is they have to be touching a solid, a liquid, or a gas in order to be able to transfer heat. They won't transfer heat in a standard vacuum. So eventually, when we're all the way down here, we'll have one side of window tiles, and that way the heat will actually travel up the windows tiles, and we'll just use the temperature shift plates to make that a little bit more efficient. We almost had a game over sort of situation for Optimus and Ironhide. Completely missed the fact that the oxalite that we put in here is 130 degrees, which is obviously a little bit more than scalding for dupes not in an Atmos suit. So Optimus is already taking a little bit of damage. So what I've done is I've locked them in their room. What we're going to do when we get to Smelial, we'll take all the oxalite out, drop it on the cold planet, let it cool off, and then we'll throw it back in here. And that hopefully should be able to fix that issue. Another solution is I could just put them in Atmos suits for the duration, but they've already eaten, they've already gone to the bathroom, and we're almost there. All right, Uranus 1 is now in orbit of Smelial, and so we can begin the mission of the Trailblazer modules. First up, we'll send Ironhide down. You click deploy, and then we got this little guy right here. Now, when he comes down, actually, I'm not sure if he would put his Atmos suit on first, so I need to make sure he puts his Atmos suit on before we do this. Now, when we're looking to deploy this thing, we want it to be somewhat close because we need to get both these modules down and the rocket platform built pretty quickly. We know we don't want the rocket to land here because it would just instant melt most of this ice and then cause problems. So we'll probably land the rocket here. So I think the Trailblazer module can land right here. And then we'll land the next one right next to it. Don't be alarmed that it looks like they're not wearing Atmos suits. You can see they have the little suits on, and even the unequipped suit button is active. It's just a graphical glitch. Now we just go ahead and deconstruct these beautiful Trailblazer modules. And we are left with 800 kilos of beautiful steel. I think we'll probably dig this area out first. And this will be a nice little platform for our platform. We're also going to need some ladders to get in there. Unfortunately, right now, all we have is sedimentary rock and sandstone. So we're going to need to land the rocket before we build the ladders. Otherwise, the rocket would just melt those ladders. Go back to Uranus 1. And now we can actually select Smelial to land at. And look at this. Our beautiful rocket is here. And now, before we run out of oxygen, let's go ahead and build up to our living module. There isn't much that old Ironhide and Optimus can't do when they put their minds together. Look at this. Such quick construction. And then we'll just select the Spacefarer module. Select all. And now they'll be able to go in there and out. First things first, I'd like to cool down that oxalite. So we'll go ahead and build a storage bin here. Why Ironhide came out without his suit, I'll never know. Alright, we've ran into a bit of a snafu. So everything started overheating. And when everything started overheating, our dupe started getting hurt, and it was just bad. I did figure out the bug with the Atmos suit dock checkpoint. Apparently, because the Atmos suit dock checkpoint was here, as soon as the dupes would come over here to put their Atmos suit on, they would teleport to the outside of the rocket. I'm guessing these spaces here are reserved for that sort of dupe teleportation, so they're not able to put their Atmos suit on. We were able to put the checkpoint here, and that worked, except we had to remove our rocket piloting, what do we call this? The rocket control station. So we're going to have to put that back after we figure this out. In the meantime, we have relocated the dupes for some good living down here. We already have a great hall here. We have their barracks here. And we have some triage cots, to repair the burns caused by the 120-degree oxalite. Fear not, though, the oxalite is cooling off, and for right now, the dupes are okay. They're living the good life. We've even transferred the berry sludge down into this ration box, so we're good. While we're waiting for that oxalite to sort of cool down, I think it's about time to gut this entire place. Ultimately, we want to get at these oil reservoirs, but we need a clean platform to be able to do it in. I think we'll add some storage for water tanks. We'll check out all the geysers and vents, because remember, we're also going to need some water source for these oil reservoirs. This ought to give Ironhide and Optimus a couple things to do for the meantime. We're going to dig out this area first. A, there's a nice vent there, but B, we need to make a big water tank to collect all the waters from around this planetoid. Okay, I may have queued up a couple more dig commands. We've decided to put the water tank over here, and that's just for ease of not having to move the Pacu. There's a bunch of Pacu here, there's some Pacu in here. Remember, we're going to need to collect those eggs to send them back to our colony, because one day we're going to be making some beautiful surf and turf. So we're starting to experience a lot of slowdowns in the colony. You can see here Optimus is walking on water. He's not just walking, but he's literally stuck. Nothing to the left or right to him, but he can't move. It's happened a couple of times. Normally I'm able to fix it by adding and removing a couple of ladders. And there he goes. Additionally, the dupes have started pausing between tasks. They have to take a second to think about what's next they wanted to do. I'm assuming it's because there's so much junk, so the simulation has to figure out temperatures and the air changing and everything like that, so it starts to bog it down, but we're nowhere near as where we'd need to be to start collecting the debris. And once you stick it all in one tile, it normally helps doing that mass sweep, but I mean, they have a lot of work left. While Optimus and Ironhide are working through all these jobs, we're getting close to when we're going to be able to head down into the oil biome. What we're waiting for is this oxalite to hit below 70 degrees so we can put it back into the rocket so we can put our Atmos suits back on. Right now it's at 80, so we're getting close. But we need to have a discussion on water. Looking at the numbers, we may not be able to run all 5 oil reservoirs, and that's for a pretty simple reason. When you go over to the oil well, you can see that an oil well requires 1,000 grams per second of water. That's a kilo of fresh water per second. And remember, if you will, our main colony only produces, somewhere between 6 and 7 kilos. So we're going to have to see how often we're going to be running these oil wells or how quickly they're consuming some of this water. So what are we going to do about water? Well, when you click on smelial, you can see it only has natural gas geyser, liquid sulfur, and carbon dioxide. Doesn't have a source of water. Now, granted, there will be a lot of water once we melt all this ice and fill this tank. Got it. But when we talk about infinite sustainability, we need to figure out something else. Especially if we have a petroleum boiler in our future. So over in our main colony, I've set up a water sieve. And it takes polluted water in and puts the clean water out. And this clean water will head over to smelial. Because it's so close to our main ladder rung, I think we're going to first start with this reservoir here. It'll be sort of our test bed just to get our oil production going. So, in a bit of humor on the side, I accidentally left Megatron and Reflector in the gym for too long. Reflector's earned 9 skill points without even being in research. Megatron, having 4 points in research, has an additional 4 points and an athletics of 18. I think you guys are good to come out of the gym now. To do that, it's easy enough. We just don't allow them access into the gym. And now at the front door, we let them go out. But first, we definitely need to skill scrub them and give them the real skills. So we finally have all the oxalite back into the rocket. It's down to 52 degrees, which is perfectly fine. This is the new design. It was necessary, remember, to move the atmosphere checkpoint away from this magical teleporting tile here, which caused some complications. So now we just recently added the atmosphere checkpoint back, so when they go to sleep, they'll eat, they'll go to the bathroom, and before they leave the rocket, they'll put their atmospheres back on. You know we can't pass up a Meep. His only negatives are unempathetic and plant murderer. Who cares? And yes, folks, finally, welcome to the colony, Bumblebee. A couple of things we've done on our main colony. First is we added up to 24 atmosuit docks. Since we're starting to add more dupes, right now we're at 20 total dupes, including Optimus and Ironhide are sitting over at Smelial. But once we get maxed out, it'll be good that every single dupe will be able to have an atmosuit dock in case they all need to go work on something. Additionally, a new bug that's been introduced, you may have been noticed, is right here at the atmosuit checkpoints, for some reason they occasionally leave bottles of oxygen. I think it has something to do when they take off their suits. You can see here we have 18.5 tons of oxygen sitting in a bottle. So to recycle that oxygen, we've added a canister emptier here and put it on oxygen. Additionally, we've added another geothermal spike to the right side of our volcanic sauna. We've been able to eat through a lot more of the igneous rock, and it keeps all of our steam turbines going pretty much flat out. One good turn deserves another. Ren here, its only negative is biohazardous. They've increased decor and cuisine, tidying, supplying, and operating. With a jack of all trades like that, welcome to the colony broadside. Despite all the hiccups, we're finally finished with one oil well. And this is good because it's requiring us 1 kilo of water, so I think we're going to stick with the one for now, despite our lofty goals. Now, if you've never seen a system like this, it's fairly simple. The oil well is placed right on the oil reservoir, and as long as it has power and water, it will emit about 3 kilos of oil per second. As it does that, it builds up pressure, and the pressure is in the form of natural gas. Once this back pressure rating here gets above this threshold here, which we have set on 50%, a duplicate will come by and release all the pressure. Now the pressure itself is natural gas. So what we do is we vacuum this out first, and that way the only thing in here is natural gas. You can see the shape that we have the tiles on, and that's done very specifically. And the reason why is because with oil this high, only natural gas will come in here. There's no chance for any outside environment gases to come in and around because it's basically liquid and locked in and of itself. We have a hydro sensor here set on 1 kilo. So as soon as the oil gets this high, this liquid pump will pump the oil out. And in this case, the oil will go right back to our main colony. And on our main colony, we have a nice tank ready to set up to receive the crude oil. This is the crude oil that we'll eventually take and make a petroleum boiler with. What's holding us back a little bit is normally on a standard petroleum boiler, you need 3 fully functioning oil wells. And with this type of water requirement, I don't know if we can run 3 oil wells in addition to our crops, in addition to our oxygen. I'm going to keep checking the water levels and see how we're doing, and eventually we will get there. So we have all the natural gas that comes out of the oil well once the back pressure is released, coming up here to a couple natural gas generators connected to a smart battery. We have the natural gas generators positioned right above the water tank over on Smelial, so this system is fully functional. We have the natural gas exhaust going directly into space, so we don't even have to worry about the carbon dioxide. In other news, Elita has finished scanning the entire solar system. We now have visibility of every single field, every single debris, all the artifacts, the satellites. So I think in the next couple episodes, we're going to go artifact hunting and see what we find. First up, Russell's teapot. Now, how Russell got his teapot way out here, I don't know, but we're definitely going to grab it. Some interesting things along the map. Here's Bolera, which is home to the gassy moo. Now, we don't necessarily need a gassy moo, but sometimes gassy moos are just fun to go get. We also found that a gilded asteroid field, and it holds fullerene. And boy, do you know we love some fullerene. And the reason why is because you need it to make some supercoolant. Oh, yes, we're almost at supercoolant. That's going to be glorious. This episode took an absolute ton of time to create, partly because smelial was such a disaster, partly because our dupes had such a rough time in the rocket. Gonna be thinking of a different rocket plan. Right now, the system with the exosuits and coming in and out of the rocket, it's a little buggy. Sometimes they grab food from out here, sometimes they grab food from in there, and there's no way to telling. I hope you had fun. I know I did. I'll talk to you soon.